there is a difference between doing commerce with AI layered on top and then agentic commerce as a whole concept. AI layered on top for your existing e-commerce or your digital commerce is, these individual use cases across your current set of processes or workflows, right? Agentic commerce is completely shifting that paradigm. You need to rethink how that customer journey is going to plan out rather than thinking, oh, digital commerce, social commerce, plus some AI here and there will make my agentic commerce work.
Welcome to the Retail Agentic Podcast, where we explore the intersection of retail, e-commerce, and AI agents, which we call Retail Agentic. Our mission is simple. We are shining a bright light on the new agentic AI shopping megatrend, which will disrupt the trillion-dollar digital retail market. The stakes are high. Google, OpenAI, Microsoft, Perplexity, Amazon, Apple, Meta, and Anthropic are all fighting to be the consumer AI shopping agent winner. There are going to be some tough decisions for online brands and retailers to make. What happens to checkout? How should payments work? Should you continue to invest in retail media networks? What does the world look like when over half of your traffic is not from humans, but from AI agents? These existential questions are the tip of the iceberg. On this podcast, we're talking to industry experts, analysts, and influencers to get answers to these questions, identify trends, and best practices. This is Retail Agentic, your podcast partner in navigating our AI shopping agent future. And now here's your host, Scott Wingo.
Welcome to the Retail Agentic Podcast. Today, I'm excited for you to hear from two guests. First, we have Saurabh Vijayvergia. He is the U.S. Retail AI Strategy and Engineering Lead at Deloitte. Also from Deloitte, we have Brian McCarthy. He is the Retail and Consumer Products Strategy Leader. They published a paper in December called Agentic Commerce, Redefining Retail Economics. We will put a link to that in the show notes. When I read that paper, I reached out immediately and said, hey, I would love to have you guys on the podcast. One of the reasons is they use the phrase agentic commerce optimization, which is my favorite phrase. And we'll talk about on the podcast who had it first. So still up for debate. In this conversation, we start with the paper, and then from there we fan out to a variety of different topics. We're going to. They're out there talking to thousands, if hundreds or thousands of retailers, and they share what they're hearing from them, which is pretty interesting. And also we talk about what's happened since this paper came out in December, which is actually a lot. Finally, we talk about predictions, and they actually have a prediction there at Deloitte that they share, and some other things that I thought were really interesting. I learned a ton from this discussion from these practitioners that are out there building things and working on strategy with lots of large retailers. I hope you do as well. Happy Agentic Commerce. Welcome to the Retail Agentic Podcast. Today we have two guests, so it's going to be 10 times as awesome. I'm excited to welcome Saurabh Vijayvergia. He is the U.S. Retail AI Strategy and Engineering Lead, and Brian McCarthy. He is Retail and Consumer Products Strategy Leader at Deloitte. Welcome, guys.
Thank you, Scott. Thanks for having us.
What inspired me to reach out to you guys is you guys wrote an awesome paper called Agentic Commerce, Redefining Retail Economics, and it made me particularly happy because you used Agentic Commerce optimization, which I think I coined it. I'm taking the credit for it. And I was happy to see that because I talked to customers a lot about SEO GEO and all that stuff, and I think that that's a different world than what the three of us are talking about, but we'll dig into that. Before we do, Saurabh, tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure thing, Scott. As you rightly pointed out, full name Saurabh Vijayvergia. I am based out of our New York office. I've been with Deloitte for close to 13 years now, and I play at the intersection of retail and AI, both on the strategy as well as the engineering side of things. I also lead our retail AI strategy and engineering practice, which is an amazing team to kind of work with. I get the opportunity to work with some really smart people, as well as on some absolutely fascinating topics in the market, fascinating clients who are trying to do a lot with these topics in the market. And I'm looking forward to today's conversation.
What did you do before Deloitte? Did you do something in the retail space as well, or was that your entry point?
No, I'm pretty much a lifer at Deloitte, but before that, I spent about 3.5 years working for SAP in Germany, where most of my clients were, in fact, all of my clients were retail and consumer products. My clients included Nestle, Procter and Gamble, as well as Skullcandy, the headphone manufacturer. So I worked with them for about 3.5 years implementing SAP for them, and then B School, and then Deloitte happened.
In your role at Deloitte, what types of companies do you work with? Is it retailers and brands, or primarily just brands?
Primarily retailers, but I do have a few brands as well who I directly interact with. But in my role, I kind of end up helping more of retail clients, retail accounts on our side, more than the consumer brands.
And Brian, give us kind of the same background in what you're doing at Deloitte.
Yeah, sure. So Brian McCarthy, I am also based in New York. I've been working in the retail and consumer product space for 20 years now. I started my career in industry working for a vertically integrated apparel and footwear brand. I started in indirect procurement. I think my first project was renegotiating the contract for like the corrugated cardboard that we use to package up all our products. And then that moved into like renegotiating our distribution lanes and our trucking contracts, moved into supply chain, ran our operations and our warehousing for almost a year, learned about technology on the supply chain side. Then I moved into merchandising and planning, and eventually like more corporate strategy. And we were doing like private equity raising at the time. And so learned a little bit about the finance side and capital market side. And then I helped us through bankruptcy in 2008. During that moment in time,
the Great Recession.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting because I got a lot of opportunity to sort of explore a lot of the heart of business areas within retail, merchandising, supply chain operations, technology, and then how you make it all run with money. And then I've been doing consulting for 15 years now. I spend a lot of my time, again, working with companies first to think through how they change their business, thinking through the functional lens. So how do they change merchandising or supply chain, inventory management? And then what are the right systems that they need to implement to make their business run more effectively? Or how do they change their customer strategy to win more in market? And those things sort of all aggregated together. And now I lead our strategy practice, which is figuring out how all those disparate things connect together at an enterprise level. So I talk to a lot of retailer and consumer products companies about where they should deploy their capital, where their focus and efforts should be, being that there's only so much time and effort and energy and dollars to go after everything. So where do you place your bets?
And Saurabh, I thought of a question for you. So looking at your little back wall there, you have retail AI. Have you guys been doing AI before GenAI or, yeah?
I mean, now it's so funny that the word traditional has been coined with AI. AI used to be like machine learning, very statistical modeling, regression sort of a thing back in the day. Almost like there was no boardroom conversation happening around AI when I started working in the whole area. Generative AI has changed the conversation though, and I got to be honest. Like every conversation is about AI, or at least some level of AI embedded in it. But I've been working in the AI space since 2014-15 timeframe. So I've kind of grown up with the traditional side of AI, and then obviously the new semantics and new kind of lexicon has everybody interested in it.
As a practitioner in the AI world, did it kind of shock you that ChatGPT had such a big moment, or did you kind of feel like something was coming? Did you see the early GPTs and kind of saw it building?
I read about the early GPTs. I didn't see it in action. I read the Transformer white paper, and in fact, I was following all the progression that was happening in the AI space. The game, in 2020, I think this was 2018-ish or maybe 2019. One of my then very senior partner pulled me into a room and said, "Well, look how your space is going to create magic in the market." And he actually chuckled on it. And I'm like, I am sure it is going to, just wait for a couple of years. And, Thanksgiving of 2022, that was the moment.
Let's talk about the paper, which is why I reached out to you guys. It's called Agentic Commerce: Redefining Retail Economics, and it came out in December of 25. What caused you to? So I imagine you're out there. You guys are out there talking to retailers all the time. What was kind of the impetus to kind of put some of those thoughts into writing at that moment in time?
Scott, to be honest with you, the conversations that we were having, in fact, the questions that we were getting were primarily focused on the whole generative engine optimization, just the progression from search engine optimization to generative engine optimization. And the clients were like really curious about how to make it happen. And in our experience, we thought this is GEO, or generative engine optimization, is probably going to be a milestone on the journey from a client who's doing social commerce or e-commerce all the way to agentic commerce, which is why the whole evolution was defined the way it is kind of showcased in the paper: SEO to GEO to ACO. So we thought that it's not just about having a chatbot find the product or make the product visible to them, but also talking about what the clients need to do today in order to get ready for, let's say, what is going to happen 6 months, 12 months. And you can debate about the timeline, but what is eventually going to happen, where individual agents are going to be primarily buying on behalf of customers. So the whole journey from clicks to no clicks. So we wanted to put that concept together and then go about it, and which was the initial conversation that Brian and I had about this. And I know you said the ACO coin, you coined the term completely. I get it, but it was probably the same time we also at the same time coined the term, if you will.
Okay.
So it was kind of that eureka moment of, look, this is what clients are asking now. What they're not asking is what is going to happen, which was the impetus for the paper.
I probably should have started here, but everyone has a little bit of a different definition of agentic commerce. Does Deloitte have one, or do you guys all kind of internally have kind of different views? Is there an official Deloitte? How do you define agentic commerce? The reason I ask is I run into these people and they have this very rigid definition, and I get in little battles with them on LinkedIn, and their definition is no humans involved, and they somehow really latched onto that. My definition is we'll get there, but it's a journey, right? And even in that journey, as a user, there may be like toilet paper. I don't care. I don't want to be involved in that transaction. But if I'm buying a new fancy watch or a car, I'm going to be I'm going to use an agent for research and dip in, but I'm going to be controlling the process 99% of the time. So I think there's always going to be a spectrum in this. Do you guys have a certain theology around agentic commerce? Where do you fall on that spectrum?
So I think of it as envisioning where the future state is going to be, and if you agree with that possibility, it's agentic commerce, regardless of where it currently is in its evolution. Right. So like most basically, you're saying software or a machine of some kind is going to help a human make a consumer-based transaction. If that right now is influencing the transaction, but not completing it on your behalf, that's okay. It still counts as agentic commerce to me, because it's a shift in how the consumer is behaving and a shift of where they're going to interact and engage with product information, with a consumer company or with a retailer.
Yeah.
I keep it that simple. The rest of it is semantics, I think.
And as you're talking to this wide range of retailers out there, and maybe occasionally some brands, what are you hearing? Give us a vibe check. Like we're recording this Jan 30, 2026. I talk to a lot of people that write papers and content like we do, and it's very hard in this world, because it used to be that in digital, at least we could get it up pretty quick, but now it's like stale after 30 days. Like what?
It really is.
Yeah. So let's start with like, what are some of the interesting new things? And I saw you guys at NRF, so I know you were there. That was just kind of like, I was shocked. I've been going to NRF for like 20 years, and I've never seen it flip overnight into one thing before. It's like crazy. And unless you like have lived it, it's like hard to explain to people. I was like, literally every booth was 100% agentic commerce, except for the little spaceships in the one Amazon low Earth orbit area. But that was cool too. Give us a vibe check. What's new? What's changed even since you put the report out?
From an agentic commerce perspective, and there are, I'll talk about the misconceptions first, Scott, if you will.
Yeah.
The two biggest ones are, some leaders still believe or still think that agentic commerce is not a journey; it is primarily a switch. And if they expose their current product catalog to something like a Gemini or a Chat GPT, they're all done, right? They're not thinking about it holistically from an end-to-end perspective. They're not thinking about cybersecurity. They're not thinking about trust. They're not thinking about replenishment. They're not thinking about pricing, promotion, how your customer service even or returns are going to work. And the other misconception that I hear quite often, and this is coming from brands or the consumer product side of things, that agentic commerce is primarily for retail organizations. Well, that's not true because obviously this, and most of the savvy leaders in the market know this. The entire life cycle of a product starts with consumer products, and retailers become the channel with which anything is sold. So it is not like consumer product organizations are not going to be, they will have to start getting on that journey sooner rather than later. Otherwise, they will be disintermediated. The one thing that we are hearing on a positive scale is to your point about NRF, there's a huge uptick in curiousness about what agentic commerce can bring to the table and how clients need to get ready for this journey. Leaders are asking about, well, from a data perspective or from an infrastructure perspective, from a trust and security perspective, what are some of these things that they need to get ready with in order to get moving on this evolutionary journey?
Scott, a couple other questions I hear being asked a lot right now is, where do we start? Another one is, should we be more focused on trying to make our product catalog accessible to these, commerce protocols, LLMs, or should we try to focus on building agentic experiences within our own digital commerce ecosystem?
Yeah.
And then the other question that we're getting a lot now is like, how fast is this moving, and what's the return that we're actually seeing at scale?
Yeah.
Some people are still wanting to say like, all right, maybe there's something here, but I want to see the proof first. And to be honest, that's one of the things that I think is hard to answer right now, right? You can talk about a single use case of where somebody's built something using AI and what the pilot return on investment is look like, or what the improved metric looks like. But at least within the retail and consumer product space, I pay attention to this a lot. I haven't seen meaningful changes in what the overall P&L statement looks like for any company now that AI exists.
Yeah.
So we need to shift the lens and talking to clients a little bit about what are the different metrics that you should be using. Because if you wait until you see like it justified at scale, it may be very hard to catch up.
Let's I want to go back to misconceptions, and then Brian, I'll come back to you. I want to pull some threads on what you just said. Another one in the report you brought up I thought that was interesting is, this comes up a lot in my discussions, is people will take this perception, this is going to be a race to the bottom immediately, and it's going to erode loyalty. And I actually think it's the opposite. I think this is like one of the biggest, most awesome brand building moments for brand builders ever. And I have this analogy where Google put us in keyword jail for 20 years. So you work with all these brands and retailers, and they're out there telling this great story. You go in the store and you see these beautiful layouts and presentations, and Google's like, that's awesome, but I want you to how about a flat screen TV? That's the keywords. You've built this innovative new, your Sony or whoever, Sharp or Samsung, you built this TV. Boom, that's what you get, 3 keywords. And I think we're now unlashed from that, and we can be storytellers again. And the brands that are really good, you have to tell that big story, but you also have to tell a product level story. And that's where we've lost a lot of muscle tissue over the last 20 years, because we just got used to, yeah, that's great, I love this new shoe, but what are the keywords we should buy? Okay, running shoe, done. So I actually think it's going to create this golden age of storytelling and loyalty and brand building.
I agree 100%. It is going to be the retailers and the companies who are able to do that successfully with the right level of efficiency and efficacy are going to be the winners. Like if I think about today's buyers, they're not going to be buying for balloons differently and then cutlery differently for planning a party. They're just going to go and say, well, I'm planning a party. I have a 7-year-old son whose next birthday is coming up next weekend. And in that, and some additional context, when you give that whole thing to, let's say, an agent that you're interacting with, whether it's a brand agent or a retailer agent, you're pretty much giving additional information for the retail company to continue to engage with you, right? If I just go and say, well, I'd like to buy balloons, they'll show me balloons and without getting any more context behind it.
Yeah.
But then if I tell them I have a 7-year-old son whose birthday is over the next weekend, and if I get an email from them, think what that is going to do with my loyalty with that retailer, right? So that those additional data points are always going to be important, which will come from this storytelling, how you are defining your products, how you are improving your PDPs, how you are placing, like when answers are generated, where and how your product is being placed in that answer. But the most important thing in this whole storytelling aspect, Scott, is going to be trust, because it takes immense amount of time to build that. But for agents, once it is broken, it will be very difficult for that agent to go back and prioritize that retailer again or prioritize that product again for the subsequent consumer journey. So trust becomes a very important factor in the storytelling.
Yeah, I think they get that. At least Sam Altman very verbally says, we know we're in this, this trusted place and we will protect that at all costs. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
But so Brian, you said the number one, you talked about two questions. Where do we start? Do we make our catalog accessible, and what's the return? Let's put, when someone asks you, where do you start? Like, what are the broad stroke answers?
I always start very simply. I was like, as we figure this all out, there's no regret whatsoever in you starting to invest in making sure that your product and data catalogs are well organized, because regardless of the decisions you make later, ensuring that your data is structured in a way that becomes easily readable by machines is going to be important, regardless of what your downstream decisions are. Internally, also, now we're talking about a couple things. One is, how should you operationally structure yourselves around this AI transformation? You don't want to treat it like a small little side project or a mini little innovation COE. How are you going to organize yourselves with maybe some more centralization around what are the foundations, the repeatable tools, the governance that's going to control how you invest into AI? But then how do you start to focus on democratizing usage of some of these AI tools within the organization so that people become familiar with how to use this technology? Even with some of the early adopters AI that we're seeing, it feels siloed in places because there's only a small subset of the organization that understands and feels comfortable using the technology. And I'm shifting broader than just agentic commerce. That's the idea of how AI is going to transform retail and consumer products much more broadly. It probably carries across all industries, including professional services like Deloitte. We're all on this journey of how do you upskill people who have learned how to do things one way, and now you're introducing a new kind of innovation that says you can now start to do things faster, but also requires you to think a little bit differently.
Yeah.
And if you don't invest in that sort of change adoption, you're going to miss on some of the upside later. So those are some of the early areas to focus that are no regrets.
Yeah, in the paper, and it's around page 7, you guys, it's pretty handy. You talk about how not only do you talk about it, that you kind of need to create a little distinct P&L for this inside your org, but it's pretty handy. You give a CFO-ready little bridge, so you kind of you give kind of the CFOs at these companies a little roadmap for kind of where to start, and then some different ways. There's a baseline, and then some potential upsides from there. So I thought that was a very Deloitte thing to do, is to like prime, tell the CFO people, like, look, this is going to be a thing, and you should actually think of it as its own little P&L, and here's a good start to it. I thought that was good. Was that a reaction to it? You must, when I read it, I was like, oh, they must get this question a lot, so they've already kind of canned the answer to make sure they address that early. Is that why you guys put that in there?
I think it's because those questions always come up. What is the return on investment we're going to see? And you always want to have an answer to that, whether it's a large scale technology transformation. You don't just say like you need an ERP program because it's how data flows. It's a meaningful investment for a company, and you should be thinking through, this is how much you have to spend on it. This is what the capital is going to go in. And this is what the benefit should be, with clear metrics that ultimately should always tie back to your financial statements, which tie back to shareholder value. So it just becomes, I don't know, natural for us to always try to think through that lens.
Yep.
This is a transformation, but it also requires meaningful investment. And I also think, similar to how when brick and mortar became brick and mortar and e-commerce, and now you had multi-channel, and then that expanded more into mobile and then to social. We started to realize at the top line, this is your sales, this is your profit. But now when you look a bit deeper, there's a completely different profit model tied to your brick and mortar operations with a different cost to serve structure than there is in your digital business. And digital, it looks a little bit different if it's your own e-commerce site versus social commerce. There's different tolls you have to pay to different partners you're working with. And if you don't have clear understanding about different value levers for each of those channels, can't make the right decisions. And so agentic commerce just looks like another one of these new channels that now comes into your omni-channel ecosystem that also has different things that need to be measured.
There's a guy that used to run analytics for Google, Avinash, Kashik, I think is how you say his last name, and he has this interesting model. This kind of reminded me of it, where he actually has a twist, because he is saying you're going to lose 30. I think his baseline's 30% to 50% of your Google traffic in the next 18 months, and here's the hole it's going to give, and then you should take. And here's your margin you're probably going to take, and you should invest that in. So he has a much more. You have kind of a pull model. He has a push model. His model is, if you don't do something right now, you're gonna be behind the eight ball. Are you guys? I'm hearing that increasingly frantically mentioned in my discussions. Are you guys hearing that as well? Like there's this push, and that Saurabh, you talked about zero click. It's real because they are losing Google traffic dramatically, and that's kind of scaring people. Are you guys hearing that across your conversations?
We are, and I mean that whole thing started with when the shopping assistants were introduced to the market. This was before agentic commerce was even being talked about. This was 23, 24. You think of Rufus from Amazon, you think of Ask Sparky from Walmart, you think of Ask Ralph from Ralph Lauren. The conversation started there, but the push and pull are both complementary to each other. I mean, some organizations are more proactive to kind of drive the top line growth in a way which is going to be accretive for them, and some organizations need a little bit of more nudge and push in terms of investing in something which is to a large extent inevitable in the market. Whether it's a push or pull, Scott, to me it's a different channel of driving your revenue. The CAC is different. The AOV is different. The unit economics, to what Brian was saying, is completely different. So whether whether the nudge is from the push or it is from the pull, this is happening around you. Whether you try to, the question is, what are you doing about it? And that's what is driving most of the conversations today.
Brian, you said, as part of your where to start kind of riff, you talked about, should I get my product ready? Should I do an agent on my site? And I would even put a third one in there. A lot of people ask me, I read all these reports of Walmart saving, so much with a pricing thing or a supply chain in the back office. So there's kind of like three tiers. There's back office kind of stuff. Then there's, website to back office, kind of on site. And then I call it off site. The part I'm obviously biased on that. That's what we're helping people do, is like get onto all get your products out onto these destination sites, and that helps mitigate the click problem. What's your recommendation of where to start, and what are retailers doing?
When retailers and brands are all on their own journeys, which is sort of fun when you put it together, you see a myriad of different use cases being deployed.
Yeah.
I guess we talked to them a bit about this idea of a balanced portfolio right now. So some of these, let's say more productivity, internal kind of AI applications do have a little bit faster time to value from a return on investment, and can help you sort of, with a more controlled workflow, prove out the capability of AI and automation to make things simpler.
Yeah, get a fast win on the board always helps
exactly.
in corporate America.
Yeah. So you get some quick wins, but the ultimate upside isn't going to be as large as some of these more complex things. So some of the work within more complex areas, say like trend to market, right? So everything from the manufacturing of products, from what's going to be hot, how do we demand plan it, how do we build the product, how do we source it, how do we make the allocation decisions to stores. That's a complex workflow that probably includes 10 different functions. I've seen two different ways of thinking about this. One is saying we have our existing workflow that includes all these different functions. let's look at each step and say, where could we apply some automation, some AI to simplify that step in the process? Kind of what we've always forever been doing within retail is just we kind of know how it works, and now we say, how can we make it a little bit better? And then you make it a little bit better. But now we're having a couple retailers that we're working with say, what if we have a separate team that decouples themselves from the existing process and just says, what do we truly need to accomplish in a trend to market? And if we were to build this whole new company that does the exact same thing that we do today with what we have available to us, how would we design that workflow? What are the finite meetings that a decision needs to be made where human needs to be heavily involved in the go forward decision or the gate? And so we're kind of rebuilding what the future process is going to look like. So maybe in the next 3 to 5 years, you're making incremental improvements using AI on an existing workflow. But if you fast forward 5 years from now, you may be shifting to a completely new way of doing business and stepping away from your old process.
One thing I'd like to add to what Brian is saying here, there is a difference between doing commerce with AI layered on top and then agentic commerce as a whole concept. AI layered on top for your existing e-commerce or your digital commerce is, these individual use cases across your current set of processes or workflows, right? Agentic commerce is completely shifting that paradigm. You need to rethink how that customer journey is going to plan out rather than thinking, oh, digital commerce, social commerce, plus some AI here and there will make my agentic commerce work. So that's something that we are consistently talking to our clients about as well.
So to push the edge of that, one thing that comes up a lot on this podcast is, do I need a website? Like, do you envision a day where people don't even really have much of a website because these agents are, you know, pulling the information from some source of data, and you're transacting off this what we used to call websites. Now, why even have a website? Do you take it to that extreme, or say more about what you mean on that?
The way I look at it, the user experience or the user interface, whether it's a website or your mobile app or whatever it is definitely going to get transformed. To take it to the extreme of you don't need anything, you don't need to, have your website or mobile apps would be far too extreme in my opinion. Yes, you will need those channels as well. It's a separate channel, but it's not a replacement of your existing channels.
Got it.
And the products that give people joy of shopping, meaning in how they feel when they're, let's say for luxury products, for instance, it requires people to touch and feel. So physical stores are still going to be important. It requires for them to, kind of have more information in front of them rather than it's not groceries that you would just say, well, go agent A, go and buy this and do it every weekend for me. It is joy. It is giving me joy to buy an LVMH product or a product from Ralph, and those kind of things you would need the other channels that currently exist.
Saurabh, on your side, with the engineering piece, do you guys help people actually go build? So I imagine Deloitte comes in, does a bunch of strategy work, and then it seems like you actually get involved on the implementation side. Have you done projects where you do like a Rufus-like agent on someone's site, some of this back office, and even like helping them get their data feed together for ChatGPT? Like where, across that spectrum, what are the things Deloitte can help people with?
We actually can help, and we are helping most of the retail and consumer products organization across the, what you call advise or strategy project, but then also engineering from an implementation perspective. And then on the operate side, which is more like sustaining what you just implemented. So this is not going to be from an engineering point of view, this is not going to be one-time implementation you're done, because you will need to keep your PDPs updated. You will need to keep your product catalog updated. You will need to make sure that you're doing regular audits for the agentic commerce system that you implemented. You need to make sure your fraud and your cybersecurity aspects of things are pretty much taken care of. So we provide those services as well, not just the, building of agents. Yes, we do that too. We think of it as like an ecosystem of multiple agents coming together, where an orchestrator is going to be required for a company to be working with the behind the scenes or quiet tech of nano agents, whether it is pricing, promotion, that orchestration as well as the nano agent. So engineering and operate both.
And do you guys have a preferred model that you work with? Are you like an OpenAI shop or Anthropic or something like that? Or are you somewhat agnostic, whatever the customer really
No,
wants?
we have alliance partnerships, technology partnerships with pretty much every hyperscaler, every platform out
Yeah.
there. We are not exclusively tied with one or the other. We help solve our clients' problems, and we help them. We help meet them where they are, rather than saying, "Well, we will only work with this platform."
One thing that I thought's interesting, and Saurabh, you kind of mentioned this. So we're talking to all these brands, and our advice is to spend a lot of time on their own websites because the agents are looking at that for authority. I'll just randomly pick one. There's a can of Pringles over here. So, so if I'm Pringles, and it's kind of part of this keyword jail. I have a website, but it doesn't really do transactions. It may have a light where to buy function or something, but they they haven't really paid attention to it. And we're coming in, and I had one of them say, "You mean to tell me I need to go to management and tell them we're going to have to do a big investment on our website where we don't have transactions to update the product data?" And I was like, "I think that's the best strategy right now." Do you agree with that? Like, if on the brand side, that they really need to beef up the data? And my argument is, they all start saying, "I want Sparky and Rufus to have better answers," and those are built. So Sparky is built on OpenAI, and Rufus is built on Anthropic. And to get in their training data, they're out crawling the internet for all information, and they're going to find that Pringles.com, if that's even a thing, and that's where it's going to pick up some knowledge. And obviously, Sparky and Rufus will have their own Walmart, Amazon flavor of that knowledge, but that's one of the best ways a brand could really make a pretty big impact. Do you agree with that?
In the near term, getting started with that could be the right approach.
Yeah.
But for long-term purposes, I think there is much more to it for consumer brands, for consumer products organization than just, beefing up their current website.
Yeah.
It's
What are
not,
some examples?
so
Say
it's
more.
not, it's not just going to be about, in your Pringles example, whether it stays fresh for longer or the taste is really good. Because those answers would probably be available on Reddit. They could be available on your product website. They could be available on, the reviews that a retailer is getting about your products.
Yep.
Agent is going to get all that information exposed to it. What gets prioritized versus what not. And obviously for Pringles, in this example, they probably not be able to control what Reddit says or doesn't say about them. They can control their own website, but the data sources are varied and across the spectrum. So they absolutely need to start somewhere. And if this is the starting point for consumer brands, great. But there's much more to it than just the website beefing up.
In the paper, you guys talk about Acommerce ecosystems. What is Acommerce, and what's an Acommerce ecosystem?
E-commerce, Brian, I'll start and then you can chime in as well. E-commerce is basically like e-commerce, but a kind of a equivalent of e-commerce to agentic commerce. E-commerce is that. The way we look at agentic commerce or e-commerce is, like I was saying earlier, it's an ecosystem of multiple agents coming together. If you are talking about agent to agent interaction, and if, let's say, I have my own agent, Scott, and I'll take Walmart's example. Walmart has their Sparky as the orchestrator agent. There must be multiple nano or multiple other agents working behind the scenes to make Walmart AI agent, or Sparky in this case, work with my agent. And those agents on Walmart side could be pricing and promotion agents. It could be discovery agent, how my agent is going to discover the right product, how my agent is going to get the right promotion applied to when I'm trying to buy or convert. Services agents, it could be any kind of category agent. So all those agents coming together, it's an ecosystem of multiple agents coming together for a retail or consumer product organization to be then interacting with a consumer individualistic agent. So that's the whole ecosystem we're talking about from an e-commerce.
I don't know what I was thinking about this morning. Maybe Mission Impossible's been streaming on a lot of my streaming things, and I like to equate things back to movies, and I was like, the e-commerce ecosystem, you could consider like Mission Impossible. You have, right, Tom Cruise, who kind of orchestrates the activity and drives the front end experience, but he's nothing if like Simon Pegg isn't doing the fantastic analytics, or Vin Rames isn't like the amazing technology expert he is, right? Or was it Michelle Monaghan doing special tasks in the new ones? But it's the idea where like pick any of your favorite like team-oriented movie, Ocean's 11, like it's a group of people who each have an individualized, specialized task that work together as a team to accomplish something.
Yeah.
And when you think of e-commerce, you're basically building a bunch of specialized agents that each do their thing really well and collectively achieve an end objective.
Yeah, and in the paper, you have a little family of agents. You got the discovery agent, pricing and promotion agent, inventory and fulfillment agent, payment and authorization agent, service and support agent, marketing and engagement agent, and data and analytics agent. Yeah, so that starts to to your point, Saurabh. That definitely feels like something new, right? This is not just a reskinning of your website, your e-commerce platform.
100%. And this is what I was saying when, the commerce with AI layered on top versus agentic commerce. Two these are two things which could sound similar, but they're not.
Do you see a day? I've run across 3 startups in this area, which is really fascinating to me. I'm sure you guys have been at this long enough. You talk a lot about e-commerce platforms, probably more than I do. My podcast partner Jason spends a lot of time talking about this. So we went from kind of like the old on-prem, build your own ATG days to SaaS, a little open source in there, kind of a little diversion to open source that's largely not got a lot of engagement now. And then we had like the Mock Alliance, which was making it more composable, and so kind of a family of microservice, and companies like Commerce Tools and stuff came along. Do you see a world where we just reinvent the whole e-commerce stack to be, basically someone could just go build the agents you're talking about, and that could be an e-commerce platform? And one of them, all you need is probably another one that's got like a user interface agent that can like spin up these zero code interfaces when it's time for the consumer, and maybe it gets injected in an MCP protocol thing. Maybe it gets injected, in a ChatGPT app or something, and maybe it gets injected on the website. Do you see a world where there's some innovation around that area?
I think innovations are going to continue to happen across the board when you think about the entire life cycle of a customer journey with agentic commerce as a channel. UCP, for example, I think it changed. Most of the preconceived notions that people had or leaders had in this space, UCP is now giving you enough of a kind of an ecosystem pre-built for you to kind of start experimenting with. It is going to, like UCP today, what maybe call it UCP 1.0, if you will, and UCP 5.0, and I don't want to even go 5 years, like maybe a year later or 2 years later, UCP 4 5.0 will be completely different set of capabilities, and it will be informed by consumer behavior, the trends that consumers are going to show in the market. So I think innovations are going to continue to happen. Now, it remains to be seen, and early days for agentic commerce, Scott, and I think you'd agree, where and how this disrupts the existing channels versus complements them.
Let's we've got about 5 minutes left. Let's kind of look at the recent past and a little bit in the future. So just yesterday, or the day before, Facebook came out with their earnings, and Mark Zuckerberg kind of dropped a bomb in my world that, he mentioned that they're working on some agentic commerce tools. That's how I read it. And then we've got OpenAI. We've kind of discovered that they're working on a cart functionality within ACP, which means, and then in the UCP announcement, I'm sure you guys saw it, there was a little future box around cart capability. So everyone kind of can see where this is going. What do you guys think about all these different protocols? And do you think Meta will enter the race? Do you think we're going to have will Anthropic in the race? And any predictions on short-term predictions of what this is going to look like kind of in 2026?
I think it is, I don't know, the Wild West, and there's going to be a lot of investments with efforts for land grabs. Was it like 65+% of all VC funding in the past year went towards something AI related? Those companies want returns, and you need to generate returns somehow. And so there's going to be elements on the B2B side that'll monetize, but consumer spending is a multi-trillion-dollar industry. And if there's an opportunity to get your fair share of that, that's a good way to generate returns. And also, some of these companies already have a meaningful amount of attention from individual users because of the other things they're already interacting with, Meta being an example. You're just building a better experience and you're holding on to more of that attention if you offer something like agentic commerce. It'll be a number of people trying to be who are the top two or three players in the space, but then there'll also be, the middle and the end of the tail. I don't know who the winners are going to be. I'm just very excited about the fact that I know this is going to look different than it does today, and it's moving at such a fast pace. Like it's just you have to be energized about it. It's crazy, right? Like we wrote this paper in December and it's already a little dated. It doesn't usually happen.
That's what we like to call job security.
Yeah.
But the social media or the social commerce that Meta is now kind of combining with the whole e-commerce or agentic commerce world is going to be fascinating to see how it pans out. A few minutes ago, I was talking about the discretionary versus non-discretionary kind of, giving joy versus not giving joy kind of customer journeys. With social commerce and Meta getting into this whole, ecosystem makes it even more of, even more fascinating, Scott, because now you're not just thinking about grocery products, you're also thinking about some of the products that people get influenced by on social media. And if you can buy those products there itself, why do you even need to, go to your universal models to even ask for them? I think it was like a fascinating announcement to read about. The other one, by the way, is the Google Chrome browser, and for them the Gemini kind of embedded in there, and you could directly build carts from there. So I think that is also going to be materially impactful in how people shop today versus going to gemini.google.com rather than, hey, I'm already browsing it on a website, which also goes back to your previous question around websites and whether they continue to be relevant or not.
So everyone's kind of pinning their forecast on 2030. I don't know if you guys have one. I don't think I've seen Casey. Casey seems to be your official forecaster. I don't, or prognosticator. So I haven't seen anything out of him other than he's putting out a lot of infographics all of a sudden. In the, so PayPal has said 2030, 25% of e-commerce will be agentic. I'm more excited. Morgan Stanley had one where they basically said, we think this is going to add like several points of growth to overall digital retail. And I think that's going to be the really exciting thing. That's the part of, the share thing is okay, but I think the percent of e-commerce is kind of boring to me. We, as an industry, I'd like to see digital retail go faster. Do you guys have any thoughts on, does that feel right? Is that too low, over, under, or any other different kind of little further out forecast?
Yeah, we ran a forecast similar to Morgan Stanley's and came up with a similar number. We did like a conservative case, a base case, and then an aggressive case.
Yeah.
Our aggressive case actually was even a bit more aggressive than theirs, with 25 to 30% of share coming from agentic commerce. It makes you not want to trust it because that's such an absurdity thing to say.
It gets to be absolute dollars get to be up towards $1 trillion, which is kind of like it makes you want to like check your numbers.
Yeah, but when you look
a lot of zeros on there. Yeah,
exactly. When you look at like how fast digital grew, right, from when it first started with e-commerce, and then when mobile took off, how fast mobile grew at a faster rate than e-com, and then social commerce and how fast that's been growing faster than mobile commerce, keep taking share from each other. The proof points are already there with like consumers who are familiar and comfortable with technology and interact with brands and retailers in a different way than they have are able to move on to the next thing with a bit more comfort and ease than they did the thing before. So the idea of agentic commerce being the next thing, that now a more tech savvy, mobile ready, younger consumer who grew up with this being a familiar way of shopping, it's an easier adoption curve to transition that way. So the idea of it being a meaningful channel in retail makes sense based on the history we've seen with the growth of the other channels before it.
Saurabh, what are you thinking?
God, I think whether it is a conservative view of 10 to 15% or it's an aggressive view of 25 to 30%, the underlying point is it is moving the needle. Like how much does it move and how long does it take to move, that is that's to be seen. Whether the aggressive one pans out well or the conservative one pans out well, that also depends on consumer adoption and trust. But the underlying aspect is exactly that. Like, it is moving the needle significantly enough for retail and consumer products organization to pay attention and do something about it. And the faster they get on their agentic commerce journey, the better it is going to be for them, rather than just sitting on the sidelines and waiting for their competition or their partners go leaps and bounds ahead of them, because they started earlier and they learned through the journey. So that's how I look at it. It's a significant movement happening.
Well, we've used our available time. Thanks for coming on, Saurabh and Brian. If folks want to follow you individually, is LinkedIn a good place? Is that kind of where you publish stuff?
Yes, LinkedIn is a great place for me and Brian.
All right. No TikTok channels, or don't do your TikTok dances?
I do have my own podcast as well.
Let's talk about that. Yeah, let's promote your podcast.
Well, it's called The Retail Tales, which is at the intersection of retail and AI. It's an audio only, and I mean, we are on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube as well.
Retail Tales.
So, and Brian's been one of my guests on the podcast talking about a different topic, but we kind of collaborate quite a lot in the market together.
Brian, LinkedIn, the best place for you. Do you have your own podcast too?
No, LinkedIn is my social media platform, and then I have one like GroupMe account with my 8 younger siblings, but that's it. My whole social media presence, LinkedIn.
We'll stay out of your GroupMe. That sounds like a family thing. Appreciate the time, guys. I'm sure I'll see you at Shop Talking Around, and thanks for being on Retail Gentic.
Follow, rate, and share to stay up to date with Retail Gentic, your guide to the future of AI shopping agents.